Hello and welcome to an episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name is Jacob and today I'm going to be doing a tier list of my personal favorite Godzilla movies from worst to best in my personal opinion. This video is actually going to be my entry into the stay-at-home Cyber Kaiju event, which is, from what I understand, because it's been pretty vaguely explained to me, but it's meant to be like an online event where creators on a whole bunch of different platforms, YouTube, Instagram, God knows what else, are free to put this hashtag, the Cyber Kaiju hashtag, into their content and promote it as part of this event. And it's kind of meant to be like a celebratory kaiju event taking place as kind of an online version of G-Fest, something like that. Just because we've had a pretty rough year when it comes to actual physical events and cons and things where people could actually go to and meet up. So this is kind of like a virtual version of that, from what I understand. I think it's run by people like Ultrazilla and Steven's Toy Reviews and stuff like that. So that's my vague understanding of it. But it turns out that it's almost over, so I don't even know if I can actually fit this video in to the event. If not, consider this my Godzilla's birthday celebratory video or something like that, because it's almost November 3rd, which is of course the birthday of the big G. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to start off from my least favorite to my most favorite Godzilla movies. Again, this is my own personal opinion, and think of this as a very informal video as well. I found it so difficult to list these, actually, because I haven't watched a lot of them recently, so my memory on some of them, on how I really feel about some of these films, is a little vague. There's so many of them, and there's so many that I would like to put higher, but the problem is there's so many other films that I would like to put higher that they just seem to pack down to the bottom of the list. I'm like, why is this one near the bottom of the list when it should be up near the top? But then I look at the list, I'm like, I can't put it near the top because I have to put these in between, and yeah. Anyway, let's get started. Just before we dive into my actual list, I want to cover one specific film that I think doesn't really count. And I mean 3 guesses as to which one that is. Of course, the one that I'm referring to is the 1998 American Godzilla, directed by Roland Emmerich, titled Godzilla. Most people, I'd say, I think I'm not in the minority here, I think most people wouldn't consider this a real Godzilla film or true Godzilla film. Hence the name Gino, meaning Godzilla in name only. So I think, yeah, this is a pretty common film to have at the bottom of most lists, because as a Godzilla movie, this is really bad. It's really disrespectful to the character. Roland Emmerich wasn't even a fan of Godzilla. He didn't even like Godzilla. He wanted to change Godzilla at his core in making this movie. So it is a terrible Godzilla movie. However, I don't consider it to be a Godzilla movie because of all those reasons. I've never considered it to be a Godzilla movie, honestly. And as a standalone monster movie, I actually think it's pretty good. I like it. It's one of these movies that did a lot of good for the franchise, whether we knew it or not. We have these modern MonsterVerse films because of this movie. There was a lot of pressure on these new American films to do well because of how poorly this one represented our favorite kaiju. And because of that, we also got a bunch of new Toho films right after it. We got Godzilla 2000 and all the Millennium series right after it because this film flopped. But it is a fun movie in its own right. It had some pretty cool practical effects, especially for the time, and some pretty decent CGI for the time. I think the monster design is an awesome monster design as an original monster. It's just, from whatever way you look at it, it's a fun 90s action monster movie. It's obviously trying to rip off Jurassic Park a little bit, Independence Day, and has some Godzilla-ish elements in here, but it really isn't a Godzilla film in its own right, so that is why I'm omitting it from my list. So I think that one was pretty uncontroversial as far as Godzilla movies are concerned. I think that's fair to put Zilla in its place there. I think most people would actually agree with me. I think that's kind of the consensus on the film. This next one, however, I think is going to be where the major criticism of my list is going to come from. I think this is where most of you will disagree. But this is my personal list. I want to be honest, and just let me explain, because it's not as bad as you think, okay? Just let me explain. I get that it is odd to have Godzilla 2014 at number 34 on a tier list of Godzilla movies. I get that. I don't think that it is objectively the worst of these movies. I even would go so far as to say that some elements in Godzilla 2014, specifically the opening of the movie, that basically everything where Bryan Cranston is still alive, and we're basically going through the Janjira power plant explosion and that meltdown and his wife dying there, and then that like conspiracy theory stuff that happens later, and that whole investigation into that overgrown city area 15 years later. That all is so good. I absolutely adored that part of the movie. Possibly some of the best cinema in any Godzilla movie, to be honest. My problem lies with the rest of the film. It gets our expectations so high up at the beginning that it's just so great, and it just sucks you in. And then they kill off the main character. They kill off Bryan Cranston's character, and then I'm just left during the rest of the movie feeling disappointed. And it's honestly the only Godzilla movie where I can just see the wasted potential throughout the whole viewing experience, that I really can't enjoy viewing the rest of the film. Yeah, the cinematography's good. Yeah, it's, you know, it's made with modern cinema techniques, and that's all cool, and it's really atmospheric and all that stuff, and there's great suspense. But I don't care about the character. In fact, I hate Aaron Taylor Johnson's character in this movie. He's so bland. I can't stand him, and all those people who say, "Oh, it's realistic that he's a soldier, so he's like all quiet and doesn't emote," and well, then don't write him as the main character. What the mean? Sorry, it's just there's a reason this film is on this part of the list for me. So it's the only film that really gets me worked up, and I could talk at length about it, but I don't want to, because this is meant to be a really informal, really quick, sort of snappy video, just going through all these films. At number 33, I put 1969's Godzilla's Revenge. Now, the actual reason I put this here isn't because I hate this movie or anything like that. I actually don't remember it very well, to be entirely honest, and there's a number of films on this that I remember a little bit vaguely, but I've like definitely watched those. This is one of those movies where I watched it so long ago that I'm not even sure if I actually watched it. But I put it down here on the list because, for all intents and purposes, this is regarded as one of the worst films in the Godzilla franchise, and that's probably what's put me off of actually rewatching it. I'm actually kind of curious whether I might enjoy this film, because I like weird, schlocky films. So this could be interesting, and even if it's got a lot of children actors and dream sequences and really cringy weird stuff and Gabra, you know, it might be fun. And plus it's directed by Ishiro Honda, so like, I don't know, he knows what he's doing most of the time. I mean, he directed the original Gojira, for God's sakes, so he's gotta know what he's doing. So how bad can it be? At number 32, I put 1994's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. This is hands down my least favorite Heisei era film, and just generally one of my least liked Godzilla movies. And I actually do like this film. Basically everything on this list going forwards are films that I like, because I don't really dislike Godzilla movies all that much, apart from, again, my mixed feelings of Godzilla 2014, and the fact that I don't consider Zilla, the 1998 film, to be a Godzilla movie. This film in particular I found a bit lacking. It's just very by the numbers for the Heisei era. We get Godzilla fighting another monster that just happens to be basically like some form of a Godzilla copy or clone. Again, granted, Space Godzilla does have a freaking cool design. And we get Mogira, which is just a downgrade from both Mecha Godzilla and Mecha King Ghidorah. He's just like a sort of a blank, emotionless mech. He just feels like a vehicle. I didn't really connect with him all that much. I did like some of the people in this. There was that dude who had a big grudge on Godzilla and wanted to shoot him with this special bullet and all that weird subplot with that. Which I did enjoy him as a character, but I thought the whole idea of just a person being able to shoot Godzilla with a bullet and that being actually taken seriously as a risk to Godzilla in this film I found that a bit ridiculous. At number 31, 30, and 29, I have the Godzilla Netflix anime series, or the Godzilla Earth Netflix anime series that came out between 2017 and 2018. I'm grouping these three basically together on the same level because it's hard to distinguish which one I like the most. If I had to choose, I guess I'd put City on the Edge of Battle at position 31, followed by Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, which is the first part, at 30, and then the last episode, Godzilla the Planet Eater, at 29. I actually like this anime series more than most people do. I actually got a lot from it. I really liked it conceptually more than anything. I think they had some really great, fresh ideas, and I really loved the world that they built, and I really wanted them to flesh it out more, which was probably my biggest criticism. But I will be the first to agree that this anime series lacked in its potential, and it has its faults. And there's a reason it's usually so low on people's tier lists. City on the Edge of Battle I enjoyed, even though I was bummed out that Mechagodzilla was reduced to a city. That was dumb, and like it disappointed a lot of people for good reason. I did enjoy how dark it got with the city actually absorbing the people and all that creepy stuff. It went in a cool direction. Planet of the Monsters has probably the best climactic ending out of these movies when Godzilla Earth shows up at the end after they kill the little Phileas Godzilla. That was phenomenal. That was just atmospheric as hell, and I really love that. And the reason I got Planet Eater up near the top is because I think it explored some of the existential themes of this series pretty well. I thought that was really cool. I loved Metphies as a character when he got to go full evil. And I think Sky Noodle Ghidorah is just such a great meme that I just had to put it there. It was a bit disappointing though that the fight scenes in that series were really slow and really bland and stuff like that. And I'm not really too sold on the art style, though I did think that version of Godzilla was really cool. I just wish they did it better. And fingers crossed that Godzilla Singular Point, the anime that is coming out next year, will be a lot better. And already by the trailers, you can see my reaction video to the trailer. It just came out before this, but already by that you can see it's gonna be so good. So yeah, fingers crossed for that. Number 28. I put the 1967 film Son of Godzilla. Again, another film which I enjoy. I think it is a goofy, fun film. However, this is the film that introduces Manila, the little grey bastard that nobody loves. He looks so gross, and even the Godzilla suit design of this film is just ugly looking. It is just the equivalent of the laziness of the Showa era. Just like, you can really see this era of Godzilla just falling apart with this film. But again, it's like a 60s Godzilla movie, so it's fun, it's stupid, it's campy, it's still worth a watch. And some people love this film, and I can see why, but for me, I'm not a huge fan. At number 27 on my list, we have the 1955 movie Godzilla Raids Again, also known as Gigantus the Fire Monster. And just because of that title, you can tell just how proud they were of this film. So proud of it, in fact, that they tried to disguise this from the canon by renaming it Gigantus. And probably for good reason. It is a bit of a mess. This was a rushed sequel to the original 54 film. The 54 film being a masterpiece of cinema, this being equivalent to kind of like a meh film. It didn't really have the same weight of the first film. It just felt like a generic 50s monster movie, and it was very experimental and misguided, and was lacking a lot of the people that worked on the original film, which would then come back for the subsequent Godzilla movies, which really made them shine. However, It is really cool that they brought Anguirus into the canon. That's probably the best thing about this film. Anguirus is just a really solid monster design, and I think it does have atmosphere and some good parts in it, and kind of a sad ending as well. So I do recommend giving it a watch, but there is a reason it is kind of low on this list as well. At number 26, I put the 2000 movie. And no, I don't mean Godzilla 2000 Millennium. Oh gosh, yeah, Godzilla canon, it gets a little confusing. That film came out in 1999, but was titled Godzilla 2000. This movie came out in the year 2000 and is titled Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. I actually like this movie. I think it's really fun. It's really goofy and kind of weird, and I think it's pretty cool because it actually brings back an old bug kaiju, an obscure kaiju from the 1956 movie Rodan, where there was some Meganula, these kind of weird bug monsters that showed up in the beginning of that film and subsequently were shown to be just the food of these Rodan kaiju. And they bring the queen of these creatures back as Megaguirus in this movie, and I think that's really cool, tying it back to some old Toho kaiju. This film feels a lot like Godzilla 2000. It has basically the same design of Godzilla, and you'd be forgiven for thinking it's actually a sequel to Godzilla 2000, but apparently this is actually a direct sequel to the original Godzilla. The reason I have it so low on the list here is because it feels really messy. Tonally, it's kind of weird. It's got these weird sci-fi elements, like this weird black hole gun and like some child actors. These weird sci-fi elements which just feel a little bit underdeveloped, and tonally it just feels a bit of a mess. And the goofiness as well, it's a bit hit or miss at times, but I think some of the battles between Godzilla and Megaguirus are really fun. At number 25, we come to one of those movies that I definitely need to rewatch in order to actually accurately place it on this list. I can see this movie going much higher if I actually give it a chance, because I haven't watched this film in a long time. Of course, we have the 1972 movie Godzilla vs. Gigan. So the reason I put this on my list, this low on my list, aside from the fact that I haven't rewatched it in a while, is that it's at the point where I think the Showa era was starting to waver. The early Showa era, the 60s Showa era, is very solid, I would say. But when we approach the 70s, that's when you can get really hit and miss. And I think this is one of those sort of medium tier, lower tier sort of Showa era episodes. However, we do get the introduction of one of my favorite kaiju of all time, that being Gigan. Freaking hell, this cyborg space chicken kaiju is amazing. So this movie is worth a watch just for this. At number 24, we get the 2003 movie Godzilla Tokyo SOS. This is both a sequel to the original 1960... Ooh. Oh, what year did it come out in? 62, maybe? The original Mothra from the Showa era, as well as being a sequel to the 2002 movie Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. And it is basically regarded as kind of a remake of both of those films. I actually enjoy this film quite a lot. It's got the Millennium era effects. It's got Kiryu, the Millennium version of Mechagodzilla, which I absolutely adore. And I think the Mothra design is really cool in this movie as well. And the Godzilla design, awesome as well. I think he's lacking a bit of personality, but the design itself is really sick during these two films. And the reason I put it this low is because there were other films that I kind of wanted to put above it. But actually, I think this one is a bit underrated. A lot of people put it really low on their lists, and I'm kind of doing the same thing here, but this is one of those Godzilla movies that I can casually put on and enjoy comfortably every time. It's not one that I really have any hiccups with or I have to be in a particular mood for. It's kind of like an easy viewing Godzilla movie. You get to see some cool monster battles, some really cool miniatures and stuff like that, done with really good 2000s era miniature effects. At number 23, I have Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, also known as Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, from 1966. So this is one of the mid-Showa era films that a lot of people don't like. They think it's really bland and forgettable and put it kind of really low on their lists. And I actually have a soft spot for this film. This is one of the few Godzilla movies that I had growing up when I was first, really struggling to find Godzilla movies. I always really enjoyed this film. I love Ibira. I know a lot of people hate Ibira because he's just a lobster, basically, but I don't know why. I always just love the idea of a giant lobster kaiju, and I'm really partial to Showa-era films as it is. So I thought this one was a lot of fun. And it's an odd movie as well. It's kind of like an island romp film, so it's got that sort of 60s island tropical feel to it, kind of like Son of Godzilla and ones like that. So we don't really get city destruction or anything on a next level like you would get in a lot of the films that we're going to get further up on my list. At number 22, we have 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla. This has been, for the longest time, one of the top-selling Godzilla movies of all time, one of the most known Godzilla movies of all time, and one which we are going to get a remake of coming next year, so I'm super excited about that. But the 1962 film is a lot of fun. It features one of the ugliest Kong suits of all time, and one of the weirdest Godzilla designs of the Showa era, but it is just a classic and a good, fun, classic Godzilla Showa movie. Don't really know what more to say about it except for this scene right here. This basically sums up why this movie is great. Oh dear God, eat your vegetables. At number 21, we have the 1992 movie Godzilla vs. Mothra, also known as Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth. This is one of my, again, lower-ranking Heisei-era films. However, unlike a lot of people, I actually enjoy this one quite a bit. I had a hard time not putting this up higher on my list. A lot of people tend to think this is a very low-ranking Heisei-era film, and they tend to put it alongside the Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla movie. However, I don't know why, I just kind of like it. Maybe it's because I'm a huge Mothra fan, maybe it's because I don't really mind that this film is kind of a remake of the original Mothra. Maybe I just like how fluffy Mothra is. I don't know. Batra's pretty cool too. It's a very sort of by-the-numbers Heisei-era film, but I think it has enough going for it to put it up in this general part of my list. So I do like the kind of Indiana Jones-esque elements of the beginning of this film. At number 20, we have 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla. So this is the sequel to the 1974 movie Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and this is the much darker of the two films, actually, and the last film in the Showa era of Godzilla movies. And I think it was the last one filmed by Ishiro Honda as well. So the previous Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla film wasn't filmed by Honda, and then he comes back to do one last movie. And I don't know, I have mixed feelings on this film. The main reason is I think it's overshadowed by Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which is such a bright, colorful, explosive, and just amazing fun time of a movie. Whereas this one feels like it's sort of brooding, darker cousin that, you know what, it's probably a lot better than I'm actually giving it credit for. In retrospective, I think if I watch it again, I would put it up a lot higher. It covers a lot of really cool thematic stuff. It has a lot of the classic Honda tropes that really make Godzilla movies stand out. I think the reason I put it this low is I'm not a huge Titanosaurus fan. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love Titanosaurus, but I kind of find him annoying. Mainly it's that roar. Don't get me wrong, I love all kaiju, but for whatever reason, it just rubs me the wrong way. Fun fact though, this movie is currently available in its entirety on Pornhub, and this is also one of the only Godzilla films to feature nudity of some form, as it has female breasts shown during like a cyborg operations scene, although those are actually fakes from what I've heard. They're not the actress's real chest, it's prosthetics, just for filming purposes, but still, just some fun facts about this film. At number 19, we have the 1965 movie Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. So this is one of the strong points of the classic Showa era of movies. However, this is again another one I need to rewatch to really appreciate. But this is kind of considered to be the final film in the sort of Godzilla arc put together by Ishiro Honda, where you have Godzilla coming back in King Kong vs. Godzilla, followed by Mothra vs. Godzilla, where you get to really see Godzilla as a villain. And then we have Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, where Godzilla starts to shift in terms of character into more of like an anti-hero. And then you have this one where he's kind of redeemed as a superhero. And this is a fun movie. It's got Glenn. Who doesn't love Glenn? I don't know why, I just always remember Glenn from that film. Him and his bloody happy face, which is hilarious. It's got, of course, Godzilla and Rodan off in space fighting Ghidorah, which is just a whole lot of fun. Apparently this is one of the few Godzilla movies that my father actually saw in cinemas when he was a kid, back in Poland, so that's a cool little fact about this film. At number 18, we have the 1971 movie Godzilla vs. Hedorah, also known as Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster. It's kind of the black sheep of the Showa era, really. I know a lot of people don't like this film. I like it a lot, actually. It's trippy as hell, it's dark, it's bizarre, it is just a mess of tones as a whole. But that's all the stuff that makes it a whole lot of fun, and it has one of the coolest classic monsters in it ever. Just this weird walking garbage monster with these striking red and yellow eyes that I absolutely adore. This is a, really weird movie. The music in it is one thing that really stands out to me. It's got a mix of really sort of bad, kind of bland Godzilla themes, really goofy kind of themes, like when he starts flying. Yeah, Godzilla flies in this movie. When he starts flying in this, like, mwah, mwah, sounds that everyone hates. I don't know, it just sounds dumb. But then you got these really funky, sort of psychedelic tracks in it. This sort of like a 60s pop rock kind of stuff going on in there, and this sort of rhythm and bluesy stuff, and these weird tracks in it, and it just makes it a whole lot of fun, because I'm really into that kind of music, and just into that psychedelic vibe. There's also that scene with all the fish heads. I don't know if that's like a reference to a trout face mask or whatever that Captain Beefheart album is that is also about as bizarre as this movie. Yeah, it's chaotic, it's a mess, but I like this movie. I think it's really cool. It's got a great monster, and Godzilla gets the shit kicked into him. He literally gets shat on in this film. It's weird. Actually, I'm just going to throw in a quick little interval here, just because it's Hedorah related, and just because I want to do some shameless self-promotion. If you guys are fans of Hedorah, I am currently making a bunch of these. This is a resin Hedorah medallion, which I made, so you can see it's just a white resin. This one's my painted prototype, but I've got a bunch of these in the works. These are hand sculpted by me and then cast in a polyurethane resin. So I am going to be making and selling a bunch of these as merch for my channel in the near future. This has been an ongoing project. I've actually haven't had much time to work on these recently, but I'm really hoping to get these out there to you guys in the near future. So they are still coming if you guys are interested, but yeah. Hedorah merch. I'm also making a bunch of other stuff, like these Mothra ones here. These ones are currently unpainted, but yeah, these will be like pins and magnets and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, sorry about that random advertisement in the middle of the video, but I just wanted to put that out there because I haven't talked about these in a while, and I actually wanted you guys to know that I haven't forgotten about them, and they're still in the works. It's just, life has been busy. Moving on to the next movie, coming in at number 17. We have the 1999 movie, Godzilla 2000 Millennium. This is Toho's reaction to the 1998 American Godzilla movie. They sped this movie into production and really wanted to showcase what Godzilla truly was to the world with this movie. And this is a really good interpretation of what the 1998 movie should have been. We have a much more modern looking, really fierce looking Godzilla. The pace of this movie and just the general build of it seems a bit more westernized, a bit more Americanized. and it is just a good, solid, middle-of-the-road Godzilla movie. I really like the cast in this, in particular the father and the daughter main pair, which are the kind of research team researching Godzilla. They were great in this film. I think this version of Godzilla is really cool, just a classic fan-favorite design. In our 16th position, we have the 2002 movie Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. This movie brings back Mechagodzilla, and it does it in a glorious fashion. This is a really, really well done film, not just in terms of the monster action, but in terms of the characters and character development. We've got a great lead protagonist. She is fantastic in this, and Kiryu, the version of Mechagodzilla, is just iconic. One of my favorite versions of Mechagodzilla in this film. I love the whole element of Mechagodzilla being built upon the bones of the original Godzilla. I'm really glad this film did end up getting a sequel with Tokyo SOS, even though most people dislike that film quite a bit compared to this one. But this, as its own film, is fantastic and is one of the strongest Godzilla films, probably objectively, just in general, especially in the Millennium era. And coming just ahead of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, we have Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, the 1993 movie. It's a little bit of confusion with the title. This is the second movie called Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, thus it has 2 after it, but this is actually the third movie with Mechagodzilla fighting Godzilla, so technically it should be called number 3, however it's not even in the same continuity as the previous 2 films. Regardless, this is one of the strongest films of the Heisei era. I have my little gripes with it here and there, that's why it's at this position on the list and not higher, but it is a fantastic movie nonetheless. They go all out with this one, because this was meant to be the final movie, Godzilla movie ever, but of course they just kept pumping him out after this, and I'm glad about that. My gripes with this film are mainly that I don't really like the Mechagodzilla design in this. He just looks bland and I don't know. I know a lot of people love this version of him, but something about it never really connected with me. He doesn't have that badass nuts and bolts sort of like classic robot look that the 74 Mechagodzilla had. And he doesn't have that like really cool space age, like a really detailed design that Kiryu had. He just feels kind of bulky and weird and just, I don't know. I was never partial to him. Same with the Rodan design in this film. I didn't really like this Rodan particularly, although I liked his character in the movie. Also had some issues with that, like the Pterodon dude, the dude who really liked Pterodons. He was a bit odd in this film. But yeah, just a great film. Really love how the stakes are built in this, how they throw in Rodan and Mechagodzilla, just a lot of kaiju action. And the soundtrack. Dear freaking god, Ifukube goes all out with this soundtrack. That just like the main theme of this movie is to die for. Coming in at number 14, we have the 1984 film The Return of Godzilla, also just titled Godzilla, also known as Godzilla 1984 or Godzilla 1985, depending on the cut which you'd watch. This is the first film of the Heisei era, and it's a really cool movie. It takes Godzilla to darker roots. It is just a good blend of like the Showa era design and the Heisei design, kind of this midpoint design. And it's got this really unique version of Godzilla in it. It has a lot of Cold War tension in this movie, so it's really of the time. It's got a cool atmosphere. It's just a really solid Godzilla movie, very atmospheric. I definitely recommend this one. Not my favorite movie. I know some people absolutely adore this movie to no end. There's some that I definitely like more than it, but it's yeah, one of the better ones. And coming swiftly after that one, we have number 13, the 1989 Godzilla vs. Biollante movie. This, in recent years, has become a fan-favorite movie, and for good reason. Biollante is an incredibly realized kaiju. The practical effects that went into bringing this creature to life are second to none. And as a movie in itself, it is a really solidly written Godzilla movie. Now, it does have its blemishes. It's very 80s feeling. It's got really cheesy 80s action stuff. The English acting in this film is really bad, and there's a lot of scenes that are meant to occur in some like fake Middle Eastern country and have some like secret agents from those areas, and they're all a little bit cringy and a bit dated and stuff like that. But It's a really well realized film. It's very similar in tone to Terror of Mechagodzilla. It has that dark, well written, really thematic writing to it, and it's all about like the fear of messing with nature and like genetically altering creatures and stuff like that. So that's really well written in. It's a very solid movie. It does drag in some parts and it doesn't quite have the action that you would expect out of this film, but it's still a really great dark sci-fi monster movie. Number 12. This one is gonna be a little bit controversial, and honestly, part of me thinks if I were being a little bit more honest with myself, I might even put this one higher on the list. But the 1973 Godzilla vs. Megalon movie. Okay. I don't know. I just love this movie. This movie is objectively bad. It is objectively really bad, but it is so freaking good. So bad that it's so freaking good. It is the epitome of like Showa era cheese and stupidness and crazy. First of all, we have Jet Jaguar. I love Jet Jaguar more than any grown man should. We have Megalon, one of the other like just so freaking awesome kaiju, which I really want to see come back into a movie again. I love Megalon's design. Of course, he's designed by the same dude who designed Gigan. You can really tell it's got that same kind of biomechanical design, but this time instead of like a weird chicken cyborg, it's like a beetle or a cockroach or something like that. And he comes from under the ocean in the Seatopian society, which is like these weird like 70s mustache wearing porn actor Easter Island cult people under the waves. It's just a weird film, and I mean, Jet Jaguar's theme song, I mean, what more can you say? This movie brings me so much joy. Now, the next 6 movies, I could honestly kind of put them in any old order and I'd still be satisfied with my list. I struggle so hard to decide which one I like better than the other. So yeah, just think of the next 6 movies. So from 11 to 6, all of those are interchangeable. You can put them in any order, but for today, I've put them in this order, and at number 11, I've got the 2001 Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, and dear god, that title. But yeah, this is probably one of the strangest Godzilla movies out there. Tonally, it's completely different from so many Godzilla movies. It is the most fantasy Godzilla movie. Of course, directed by the same dude who directed the 90s Gamera trilogy, so you know it's just brimming with quality. I love this movie. It's got a really amazing version of Godzilla as the design. Just the meanest freaking version of Godzilla. It's just really haunting in its score. This sort of more electric, the music's a little bit more electric sounding than the regular sort of big orchestral stuff. I do feel a bit odd with the theme of this movie. I know that some people are a little bit off-put by it because of that. It does feel very different as a movie. And I get that, but that's part of its appeal. Personally, the reason I would not put it in my like top 5 or higher favorite Godzilla movies is just because I don't like that they use Mothra and King Ghidorah in this movie. They should have really stuck to using Anguirus and Varan like the director originally wanted. That would have made so much more sense. Both Mothra and King Ghidorah just feel out of place in this film. But by far, Baragon is my favorite monster from this movie. This version of Baragon I adore, and the fight with him and Godzilla is one of my favorite monster movie moments ever. Alright, we've broken into the top 10 movies, guys. So starting off at number 10, we have the 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters movie. The much, much, much better sequel to the 2014 Legendary Pictures movie. So this is, by far, I'd say, the best American-made Godzilla movie ever. And I really doubt that Godzilla vs. Kong is going to be able to even top this one. I can't tell you just how overjoyed I was when I first saw this film in theaters for the first time. I loved every minute of it. The kaiju action in this is incredible. All the kaiju in this film are brought to amazing modern Western cinema design in as best as they could be, I think. I'd still tweak them a little bit. I still have issues with Mothra's hind legs and stuff like that, and I I'm still not sold on like this version of Godzilla. His face never really connected with me, but damn, the improvements they made over the 2014 design are second to none. This movie's version of Ghidorah is really good. Like, oh, I'm tempted to say is my favorite, but I still kind of prefer the Showa Ghidorah to this one. But damn, he's good. I mean, we've got Kevin, Ghidorah's left head, just being his quirky self, and we've got Rodan. The scene with Rodan from this movie is my favorite scene in this film. It is phenomenal, but it is also closely followed by that emotional scene where Serizawa sacrifices himself to revive Godzilla, and that was just heart-wrenching. It is just... oh, this movie is just a blast from start to finish. Yeah, it has its little issues. I agree that some of the character stuff could have been stronger, but I think it's definitely been underrated by a lot of fans out there. It is a very, very good movie, a very good Godzilla movie. The best that I think the US or the Western cinema world could probably do with this source material. But that's just how I feel about it. Perhaps it's just because it's really fresh in my mind still. It still feels so new, like such a new movie, that I'm still living the hype. So we'll see in a couple of years where this will end up on my list. But right now, it's still pretty high. Not at the very top, even though I had such a blast with it. I still like a lot of other classic Godzilla movies more than this one. I'd still have to put them higher, but I definitely had a blast watching this like nothing else. At number 9, we have the 1968 movie, Destroy All Monsters. Oh, I really wanted to put this higher on my list. Like, I just wish I could, but there are other Godzilla movies in the way, and I just can't put them lower on the list, and it's just tearing me apart. Like Lisa. Anyway, this movie was one of my favorite Godzilla movies growing up, especially back when I barely had any Godzilla movies in my collection. This was one of my go-to films. I adore this. This is just a great Monster Bash movie, a great, solid Showa Godzilla movie. We have like it's like the Avengers of the Godzilla movies back in the day. You had all these classic kaiju coming together to face off this alien attack. Of course, we had this great battle against King Ghidorah at the end, and I love the build up to this attack. This movie really loves that Moonlight SY-3 rocket ship, but you know what? It was a pretty cool rocket ship, so I can forgive it for that. And this movie has a really long scene where some people point a laser at this weird space lollipop for hours, and that's like the most intense scene in the movie. But damn, it was such a great movie. The score, the music in this film is amazing. I just love the main theme of this. This is like my favorite Godzilla theme growing up. The dun, 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 dun. I probably got it playing in the background if Toho hasn't like blocked my video for using their copyright music. We'll see. But yeah. Love this movie. Destroy All Monsters is a definite classic. Some people criticize it here and there for being a bit slow to get to the monster action. I disagree. I remember it so fondly. At number 8, I have the 1991 movie Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And this has most likely been my first ever Godzilla movie. I have vague memories of seeing this as a kid on TV, and yeah, I've been hooked ever since, as you can tell. This movie is a ride from start to finish. I know I'm saying this about so many of these films, but it really is. This is just so out of the box when it comes to these Godzilla movies. It always feels fresh to watch this one, because it does start off with like a typical alien invasion kind of a plot, but then it flips on its head because, oh, the aliens are friendly, but then no, these are actually people, not aliens, this is people from the future. And then it's like, oh, we're gonna go into this time travel plot and go back to get rid of Godzilla back before he was even mutated into Godzilla. We dive into the origins of Godzilla, and then we get this Godzilla created in another way, and he's even bigger, and it's this really cool design of Godzilla. But King Ghidorah also shows up, and because of this, and it turns out that the future people are actually evil, and then there's this whole thing, and it's the Mecha King Ghidorah, and it's great. It's a great film. It's just really out of the box when it comes to Godzilla writing. It doesn't feel like it's by the numbers. It feels like somebody is trying to do something fresh with this franchise, and every time I watch it, I feel that the joy of seeing a Godzilla movie that feels unique and special. Even though the time travel plot doesn't make any sense if you really think about it, especially in the context of like all the other, like the canonical stuff with the rest of the Heisei era, it doesn't make sense. But if you just watch it forgetting about that, then it is a joy, and it deserves to be really high on any top-tier Godzilla movie list. Number 7, we have the 1974 Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And damn, this is another one of those films I really wanted to put higher because it's such a joy to watch. This is just... you have your, like, Showa-era movies where you got, like, the Ishiro Honda films where you've got, like, the much more serious sort of movies, the sort of really classic movies where you got to say, okay, those are really objectively good. And then you have, like, your really objectively kind of bad, like, so bad they're good films like Godzilla vs. Megalon. And then you have something like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which is just full-on, crazy, awesome, gangster, James Bond movie, space ape, alien, mecha robot fun. Again, this has my favorite version of Mechagodzilla in this film. He's just straight up evil, straight up crazy with his lasers. He's got a really badass theme song. The music in this film is great. It's just, the laser action is awesome. Godzilla is such a badass in this film, just coming out with his magnet powers to face off against this guy. I love the sort of space ape plot, and then you have like one of my favorite lines of any Godzilla film, where it's like, "This is space titanium." It's a crazy film. I just think about this film and I just think, oh, it's such a good time. It's a great time watching this film. In 6th place, we have Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. This is another one of these classic Showa films that I completely adore. This movie introduced us to one of the greatest, most iconic kaiju ever, and it did it in such a cool way. I mean, just a monster that flies around the galaxy, destroying planets. Ah, that's such a cool way of introducing this guy, and he's just wrapped up in mystery at the beginning. We have this whole Mars lady conspiracy at the beginning, and throughout the whole film, we've got this James Bond gangster kind of a feel going on. You're seeing a pattern, guys. I really like it when they throw in like James Bond-esque human stories into like monster action Showa films. For some reason, that just really works for me, and this film was just the pinnacle of that. And the film caps off with one of the first original like big monster bashes. They basically remade this film when they made Godzilla King of the Monsters the other year, and you can see why they would, because it's such a good film. This is another one of my favorite lines in the English dub, where the twin fairies are just like, "Oh, Godzilla, what dirty language," or I don't remember the exact line, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I love this movie. The introduction of Ghidorah is fantastic, and it really builds up into a fantastic end battle. The way they actually use Mothra in this is great. It's just such a well-written kaiju film. Even if it was slightly going into the slightly more goofy side of things, it was still just a good balance where Godzilla was still the anti-hero, and it did that conversion from like full-on villain into anti-hero really well in this film. It's a classic. I definitely recommend you check it out. Also has really good music. Ifukube is on top of his game in the scoring these films. Number 5, the 2004 movie Godzilla Final Wars. So I told you guys about how much I loved Destroy All Monsters growing up, and that was for the longest time my favorite Godzilla movie, until I watched Godzilla Final Wars. Just talk about a movie that is just pure action, pure awesomeness, pure joy from start to finish. Godzilla Final Wars is like Star Wars, The Matrix, Godzilla, every other tokusatsu series just mushed into one, all with just like an action-packed story, aliens, lasers, and freaking Godzilla and Don Fry being super badass. I love this movie. This is one of my go-to movies for when I just want to enjoy a movie. I'd throw on Godzilla Final Wars, and it's one of my most watched movies, just in general. I've heard time and time again that there's a subculture of Godzilla fans who don't like this movie. I don't trust those people. I think there's something wrong with those people. I'm so sorry if that's one of you, but I'm just being honest. What is wrong with you? Godzilla Final Wars is lit as hell. Just, it's stupid as hell too, but damn, it's good. In fourth place, we have the 1964 movie Mothra vs. Godzilla. This is another timeless Showa classic that has been remade and tweaked, and the plot has been used time and time again in future Godzilla movies. And yes, this one does utilize a lot of the plot of the original Mothra, but I think it really builds on it well, and it's a great sequel to that film as well as the previous Godzilla films. And it's just a great mashup film of two kaiju which started off in their own unique movies and were put together in like you know, Avengers style, kind of how we have all these mashup cinematic universes these days. So this one's a classic. This is Honda and Tsuburaya and Ifukube at their best in the early Showa era. This is, yeah, a great movie. Again, really heavy in a lot of places. This has one of my favorite versions of Godzilla. This is a mean Godzilla. This is Godzilla back when he's evil. I think Godzilla is really great when he's particularly evil. And even though he does get beaten in sort of a very silly way at the end, I still think it works, and I still love the build up to that. The fight with Mothra is great, and I'm a huge sucker for Mothra. I've always loved Mothra. She's really stood out to me as a kaiju, and I think it's a great juxtaposition to put a creature like her that's really elegant and beautiful and glorious against something like Godzilla, which is really mean and strong and powerful in a different way. And they're a great pairing together, and this film is timeless. Yeah, it's a classic, and I'd say if you haven't watched it, definitely go check it out. Okay, we did it. We're up to the top 3 of my favorite Godzilla movies. So these movies generally don't shift in order all that much. So these are pretty stable in terms of like my top 3. To be honest, these next three movies are kind of interchangeable. But for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna put number 3 as the 1995 movie, the closest one to my birth date actually, Godzilla vs. Destroyer. This movie is possibly the best definitive sequel to the original 1954 Gojira movie out there, out of all of the Godzilla movies. It works perfectly as a sequel. For just like Aliens is an incredibly perfect sequel to Alien, or Terminator 2 Judgment Day is a perfect sequel to the original Terminator film. This one is just the natural progression from the original Godzilla film. It's dark, it's mean. Godzilla is beautiful, looks incredible in this glowing meltdown version. Destroyer, the way he's written into the story, his origin, just ties so well into the original Gojira film. It's just a perfect last film for the Heisei series, and a perfect sort of definitive end to a lineage of Godzilla movies. It is an incredible film. It's dark. It takes you on different places. Like, it goes into actually having really dark scenes with the little mini destroyers in sort of the similar fashion to the Alien films, which is actually really cool. The score of this movie, incredible. Probably my favorite track of any Godzilla movie's score is the Hong Kong landing, or whatever it's called, just the main theme that this movie opens up with when you get the credits rolling and Godzilla shows up just in his awesome epicness, marching through Hong Kong, just the city with those beautiful neon lights, and you got this Godzilla, this big practical effect of him in this glowing suit covered in this steam and smoke just flowing off of him. It is spectacular, and it's tragic at the end. This is a movie that really makes us Godzilla fans cry at the end. Great movie. Definitely go check it out if you haven't seen it. Definitely watch the original Gojira before seeing it, and I would watch most of the Heisei era before seeing it, just so you kind of can follow along. The films do tie together pretty strongly in the Heisei era, even though a lot of them are a lot weaker, and some are, some are stronger, some are weaker. I would actually recommend watching them from start to finish. Alright, we're down to our last 2 films, and now I can finally talk about why I spent the equivalent of probably all the price of my other Monster Arts figures on this one figure here, and that is for the titular character and star of my number 2 film, Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla is undoubtedly one of the most controversial Godzilla movies of recent years. I can kind of see why. His design is crazy bizarre. I mean, the introduction of, like, Kamata-kun and Shinagawa-kun, I can see why people have issues with that. I can... A lot of people seem to have issues with the tail laser and all that crazy stuff like that. And most prominently, there were the boardroom meetings and stuff like that, and a lot of government stuff happening throughout the majority of the film. And so I can see why a lot of Western audiences didn't really gravitate towards this film. However, it is beloved in Japan, and I can see why. And I could see why from very early on watching this movie. This movie was made as a political satire of the Fukushima natural disaster that happened a number of years back and the government's reaction to that. And if you watch it from that perspective, as well as just knowing a little bit about Japan's sort of global political status and stuff like that, and the various agreements they had with the US post-World War II and stuff like that, this is written brilliantly, and it is funny, genuinely hilarious, a lot of the political satire in this film. And beyond that, Godzilla in this movie is incredible. He completely steals the show. Like a lot of people, when I first saw this design, I was a little bit off-put. But when I saw this thing in motion, when I saw this Godzilla with the score, with the rest of the film around it, just the way he moves, the way he acts, the sounds he makes, I was blown away by this film. This movie captures the essence of Godzilla for me. He feels so much like a classic Godzilla, and in all the ways that I felt let down with the 2014 film, because that's a whole other thing I really need to explain, to really explain why I love this film. I felt like this film did everything that the 2014 film tried to do, but it showed us how it's done, and it did it so well. It made a CGI Godzilla feel like Godzilla. It made a movie with a lot of screen time without Godzilla feel like Godzilla was really present, which is something which I felt the 2014 movie failed at to no end. It did just... it's a brilliant movie. The music in this movie, incredible. Both the original scores from the composer. He also did the music from Neon Genesis Evangelion. His name eludes me right now, but I know his stuff very well as the classic Ifukube music. All worked so well in this movie. I completely loved every version of Godzilla in this film. Kamata-kun is just so eerie and creepy. It's so cute, and he's just the best meme. He's a great meme for the Godzilla community. Shinagawa-kun felt like just such a cool throwback to the 1954 Godzilla. And then you had this full design of Godzilla, the version 4, which is just completely grown on me. I love how crazy and unique this design is. Of course, this design was sculpted by a great sculptor who worked on the Attack on Titan films, and his name is eluding me as well. I did a couple of videos on his art books and stuff like that in the previous videos, so do check those out. But Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi knocked it out of the park with this film. It is a serious film about real issues. It has something to say, and above all else, the scene where Godzilla has his atomic breath for the first time, and the very end shot of this film, took my breath away. But if you're still not convinced, because I know I'm just kind of rambling here, I've been recording this for quite some time, and goddamn, my throat is actually getting really sore from all this talking. It's just, I didn't realize how many of these films there were and how long it would take to do this video, even if I only talked like a minute or two about each one. So check out the videos by Up From the Depths. He is another reviewer who does Godzilla movie reviews, and he does the Shin Godzilla movie a whole lot of justice with his videos. They're really, really quality movie reviews, so he can really explain it a lot better than I can in this really short amount of time that I have here in this video to talk about Shin Godzilla. But don't worry, eventually I will do a full review of Shin Godzilla when I do get to doing some Godzilla Marathon reviews later on. There's no point hiding it any longer. You guys all know what number one is. Of course, it's the classic, the great film that we all know and love, Bambi versus Godzilla. No, it's the 1954 film. Of course it is. There's just no other film like it. The original Gojira is a masterpiece. Like I said, Shin Godzilla was a masterpiece, but Gojira, it is the original. It is the best. It is so well put together on every aspect. I had to put it there. I know it's a cliche film to have as the number one, but it honestly is. Like, there's a reason it is the cliche film to have as the number one film. It's not trying to replicate any other movie. I mean, you know, of course there's the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and like the original King Kong. Those were big influences on it, but the actual classic kaiju genre, that classic, the whole genre was really built upon that movie. It is the most serious monster movie I've ever watched. It is just flat out, it is so good. It's the reason that I am as much a Godzilla fan as I am, and I am. You've probably heard this all before, but yeah, the 1954 Gojira is undoubtedly the best Godzilla movie. And now I'm not talking about the King of the Monsters American Raymond Burr insert film. That one's actually pretty cool too. It's actually kind of funny the way they completely disregarded what the original Japanese was and just chucked in a Raymond Burr. That film has its charm, but the original Japanese cut is hands down just the best written, the best assembled, the best everything, just the most solid movie out of the entire canon. And for good reason. This is a movie about something real. These people that made this movie lived through real horrors of World War II, of the atomic bombings, and this movie was their way of expressing that in cinema. This wasn't about a monster. This wasn't about a big dinosaur. This was about human war, human technology, radiation, and suffering, and it was just so well put together. I don't even know where to begin. Honda was on top of his game with this film, and he continued to be one of the, greatest directors in the genre, but this was lightning in a bottle. Everyone on the production team was at their best with this film. Honda knew how to make this film feel real, put the gravity and the darkness and the heart into it. The writing of this film was done exceptionally well. The whole concept of Serizawa's character, the tragedy, his Oppenheimer-esque tragedy, the way they have his superweapon, the Oxygen Destroyer, reflect what nuclear energy was in the real world, and the way it reflects this creature created by mismanagement of nuclear energy, as well as the other scientists, Professor Yamane, again, phenomenally acted, by the way. All these characters were really well acted, and his dilemma with progressing science and that this creature shouldn't be destroyed, it should be for research, and his evolution and arc in the film as well. The film's bitter ending and Serizawa's sacrifice is just heart-wrenching to this day and just shines so thematically well with this film. The allegory is on point. Not to mention stuff like the production design. Eiji Tsuburaya did phenomenally for the time and with what he had. He created the genre of tokusatsu, basically, with his techniques, his suitimation, his miniatures. It looks so much better than films that came after, especially with the advent of color cinema. It just works perfectly in this black and white genre. And then we had Ifukube, who created a timeless, haunting score for this film. Not only that, but Godzilla's roar, his footsteps, just the essence of the creature sonically. And this movie would be so much worse without all of his contributions. Tomoyuki Tanaka, of course, is the godfather of Godzilla. He came up with the original design, not the like actual drawing design, but the idea for this character, and all these elements just came together again like lightning in a bottle. I can't do it justice here, guys. I really need to do a full review of this movie at some point to really detail it, but just it is undoubtedly the best movie of the entire series, and people don't say that lightly. It is for good reason. So yeah, 1954's Gojira, my number one Godzilla movie, and I doubt that's going to change anytime soon. So there it is, my tier list of all the current Godzilla movies, from my least favorite to my most beloved. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Which ones do you agree with and disagree with? I know there will definitely be some contentious ones out there on my list, and I guarantee that my list will shift around as I rewatch some of these movies. In fact, what I really want to do in the future is do a proper Godzilla marathon of all the Godzilla movies, reviewing them from the first one to the newest one, and then redo this video after that and actually rank them properly, having rewatched them all, because a lot of these I couldn't put them next to each other properly. I had to kind of clump them into groups because they just change in my mind which ones I like more from day to day. So this is just, a lot of it's completely arbitrary, really informal. I get that, and I know that particularly the 2014 film has some hardcore fans, and I put it very low on this list. So I know that will be a contentious issue. I also know Shin Godzilla has a lot of hate out there, which I genuinely feel sorry for you guys. Rewatch that damn film. Appreciate it. It is so freaking good. You don't have to do that. It's your freaking opinion. I don't mind either way, but still, I feel sad for you guys if you don't enjoy that movie. Same with Final Wars. What's wrong with you people? Anyway, that's my video for this Cyber Kaiju event. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this actually comes out early enough to fit in the Cyber Kaiju event. Fingers crossed. If not, this will be my video for the birthday of Godzilla coming November 3rd, 2020. With that, happy Halloween, because I'm hoping this will be released Halloween weekend. We don't really celebrate Halloween here in Australia, so the date is kind of eluding me, but it should be... This is close enough to Halloween for it to be my Halloween video, so... Happy Halloween, happy Godzilla's birthday, and happy Cyber Kaiju event. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But with that, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and out. Peace out. Bye.